For most people, the idea of nuclear war feels like something frozen in the past, a black and white image, mushroom clouds from old documentaries, a Cold War nightmare that ended decades ago. But that belief is not just wrong, it is dangerous, because the truth is simple and uncomfortable. The world is not moving away from nuclear weapons. It is quietly preparing to use them. Right now, at this very moment, nuclear war is no longer treated as unthinkable. It is treated as manageable. That shift did not happen overnight. It happened slowly through language, policy changes, military doctrine, and silence. Governments did not announce it. Media did not highlight it. But the evidence is everywhere if you know where to look. After the end of the Cold War, there was a brief illusion that nuclear weapons were becoming irrelevant. Treaties were signed. Warheads were reduced. Politicians spoke about peace dividends and a safer world. But behind the scenes, the opposite trajectory had already begun. Every major nuclear power has spent the last decade modernizing its nuclear arsenal, not reducing it, not dismantling it, modernizing it. New warheads, faster delivery systems, hypersonic missiles, submarine-launched platforms designed to stay hidden indefinitely. These are not defensive museum pieces. These are operational tools built for real scenarios. The most alarming change is not technological, it is psychological. For decades, nuclear weapons were framed as weapons of absolute last resort. Their sole purpose was deterrence, to never be used. That language has changed. Today, military documents openly discuss limited nuclear engagement, tactical nuclear options, and escalation control. These phrases sound technical and clean, but they hide a brutal idea. Nuclear war can be contained. History tells us otherwise. There is no such thing as a small nuclear war. Once the threshold is crossed, control becomes an illusion. Escalation becomes automatic. Decisions are made in minutes, sometimes seconds, under incomplete information and extreme pressure. Humans do not perform well in those conditions. They never have. The Russia-Ukraine war shattered one of the last taboos. For the first time since 1945, nuclear threats were not vague background noise. They were explicit, repeated, and normalized. Nuclear weapons were openly discussed as battlefield options, not abstract deterrents. This changed global calculations overnight. NATO quietly revised contingency plans. European governments began updating civil defense strategies. Countries that had not talked about nuclear preparedness for generations started doing so again. Not publicly, not loudly, but deliberately. In several European states, governments released or updated guidelines on how civilians should behave during a nuclear incident. Where to shelter, what supplies to store, how to seal windows, how long to stay indoors. This was not a coincidence. Governments do not publish these documents unless they believe the probability has moved from theoretical to plausible. At the same time, arms control treaties began collapsing one by one. Agreements that took decades to negotiate were abandoned in months. Verification mechanisms disappeared. Communication channels closed. What replaced them was mistrust, speed, and automation. This is the most dangerous combination imaginable. Nuclear strategy today relies heavily on early warning systems, satellite detection, and automated response protocols. These systems are fast, but they are not perfect. They never have been. Throughout history, there have been multiple documented cases where false alarms nearly triggered nuclear launches. Human intervention stopped them barely. Now imagine those same systems under cyber pressure, electronic warfare, misinformation, and artificial intelligence integration. The margin for error is shrinking. Another uncomfortable truth: nuclear weapons are no longer just about superpower standoffs. More countries are thinking about them, some openly, some quietly, some under the guise of civilian nuclear programs that can be converted if necessary. Proliferation has not stopped. It has just become more discreet. And while governments prepare, the public remains distracted. Entertainment cycles move fast. Social media rewards outrage, not long-term threats. Nuclear war does not trend well until it's too late. But preparation is happening. Military exercises increasingly simulate nuclear scenarios, not just retaliation, but first-use conditions. Strategic planners model how populations would react, how markets would collapse, how supply chains would fracture. These simulations are not theoretical games. They inform real policy decisions. Here is the part most people do not understand. If a nuclear weapon is used today, most casualties will not come from the explosion itself. They will come afterward, from infrastructure collapse, from radiation exposure days later, from hospitals that no longer function, from food distribution systems that break down, from panic, displacement, and lawlessness, from systems we take for granted simply ceasing to exist. Modern cities are fragile. They are optimized for efficiency, not resilience. Electricity grids, water treatment facilities, communication networks, all are tightly interconnected. A single disruption cascades into many others. A nuclear detonation over or near a major city would not just kill people. It would erase the city's ability to support life. Even countries not directly hit would suffer. Global trade would freeze, financial markets would crash instantly, air travel would stop, food prices would spike, energy shortages would spread, political instability would follow. This is why the idea of a regional nuclear war is a myth. There is no region isolated enough to contain the consequences. So why is this happening now? Because the post-Cold War world order is breaking down. Power balances are shifting, old rules are being ignored, new ones are not yet established. In such periods, states rely less on cooperation and more on raw deterrence. Nuclear weapons become attractive again, not because leaders want to use them, but because they believe others might. This is how arms races restart. Another factor is technological confidence. Some military planners genuinely believe modern systems can control escalation, precision strikes, lower yield warheads, advanced defenses. This belief is not supported by history, but it persists. Every generation thinks it will be smarter than the last. Every generation is wrong. The final and most disturbing element is silence, not panic. Silence. Governments rarely warn populations directly. Panic is destabilizing. Instead, they normalize preparation. Small policy changes, quiet funding shifts, technical language, the absence of alarm becomes the message. If nuclear war were impossible, none of this would be happening. The goal is not to scare you. Fear paralyzes. Awareness does not. Understanding this reality is about recognizing patterns. When multiple independent actors across different countries and ideologies all start preparing for the same extreme scenario, it means the risk has crossed a threshold. This does not mean nuclear war is inevitable. It means it is considered plausible by those with the most information and the highest stakes. That distinction matters. History shows that catastrophes rarely arrive without warning. The warnings are just subtle, technical, and easy to ignore until hindsight makes them obvious. We live in a time when nuclear weapons are no longer ghosts of the past. They are active elements of present-day strategy. The world is not screaming about it. It is adjusting to it. And that quiet adjustment should concern you far more than loud threats ever did. Because when something becomes normal, it becomes usable. And once the unthinkable becomes thinkable, the line has already been crossed.